Hello everyone, and welcome to my Sister Wives For You channel. I hope everyone is having a wonderful day. Before we begin, please hit the subscribe button and give this video a thumbs up. Kody Brown destroyed in Courtroom Showdown, the letter that shattered everything. It began as any ordinary morning in Las Vegas. Dry air, a pale blue sky, the Strip's distant hum just waking up. But by midday, the walls of the courtroom in downtown Clark County had turned electric with anticipation. They'd come from miles away. Cameras, critics, and the faithful few who still believed in Kody Brown's narrative of family unity, crowding into seats like witnesses to a championship bout. At center stage sat Kody, button-down shirt crisp, tie carefully knotted, face unreadable. Across from him sat Mary, Robin, Janelle, and Christine, each woman having taken the unprecedented step of filing against him in civil court, not for finances or assets, but for emotional betrayal. The judge opened the session with sterile authority, but everyone knew the real trial would be something far more devastating, and that it would all hinge on one document: the letter. The letter had been mentioned in testimony earlier that week as a private communication of remorse. Defense counsel insisted it was golden proof of Kody's contrition, a heartfelt apology to all his wives, promising change. That was the story being sold. But when the plaintiff's lawyer approached the bench today, flanked by Mary, Robin, Janelle, and Christine, he asked to admit it into evidence. The judge nodded. Their eyes locked across the polished desk for a heartbeat. Then it was handed over. Slowly, methodically, each of Kody's wives read it aloud. The tone felt involuntary, the words cutting into the hush like accusation. My dearest Mary, Robin, Janelle, Christine, I have failed you. Again. I am sorry. But then the bombshell confession in the second paragraph. I have not left because I want to keep you. I have stayed because I needed to keep my image, my brand. I am not staying for you. Silence shrunk the courtroom. Kody's lips parted. His eyes darted between the women. Cameras clicked. Live tones rose. The wives' voices, barely containing pain and revelation, continued. Line by line, it laid bare a calculated facade, how every compromise had been orchestrated to preserve Kody's version of family, not to support each woman. How promises had been made when cameras were rolling, and broken moments the red light turned off. How, despite his claims of spiritual leadership, he had been operating in self-preservation, prioritizing public image over emotional truth. Each word landed, as if on cold steel. The wife who had agreed to remain silent until the cameras were off read a summary of Kody's own journal entries. The one assigned spiritual companionship in the show detailed how she'd begged him for real intimacy and got only directives. Family friends outside the courtroom cried. Witnesses gasped. Reporters murmured. The letter was literal dynamite. Kody sat forward. His lawyer attempted to interrupt, citing privilege. The judge allowed cross-examination, but the wives' lawyer stood, voice steady, and repeated the final line. I didn't stay for love. I stayed for the show. That phrase echoed. He asked Kody, Is that your handwriting? That is your voice. The silence in response felt like an admission. Yes, Kody finally whispered, eyes brimming but unsteady. He stumbled through a weak apology, insisting that media pressure forced his phrasing. But Mary leaned forward, calm but fierce. You call it media pressure. I call it manipulation. You were always aware of the cameras more than you were aware of me. Robin's added testimony spoke not of betrayal to plural marriage, but of betrayal to personal truth. We didn't sign up to be figures in your story. You signed up for your own ego. As questioning continued, new revelation after revelation emerged, testimony from former staff who drew up contracts, producers who flagged the wives as storyline assets, marketing consultants who advised Kody on maintaining ratings. And then came Christine's testimony, delivered in quiet medical ward tone, about how she had early-stage cancer, how he refused her medical leave request so filming could continue. The jury scribbled furiously. The press leaned in. Kody's world, once a billboard of familial bliss, was unraveling in real time. By late afternoon, The lawyers moved into closing statements. The plaintiff spoke of redemption, not religious redemption, but emotional recovery. They asked the judge for symbolic restitution, not money, but freedom. Statements clearing their names of association with manipulation, formal retractions, legal boundaries preventing future media usage. Defense counsel countered. He was a husband. He was a husband to 4 women who chose to stay. But the letter lingered. Every viewer knew who had the moral high ground. The judge looked down, gaze unreadable. Then, unexpectedly, he invited a last word from Kody. He stood, voice cracking. "If I hurt you, I'm sorry. Not because I fear this court, because I knew what I was doing. And finally, I understand that I loved the story more than I loved all of you." The room waited. Then he turned, looking at each of them, and said simply, "I let you be part of my image, not my heart." And he sat. When the session adjourned, cameras snapped as the wives exited together, quiet, dignified, solid as one. Kody emerged just after, face pale, mouth tight, shoulders slumped. In front of the press, he said nothing. He looked down. Nothing about reputations. Nothing about divine right. He just stood in silence as the legacy he'd created turned into evidence against him. The letter that was supposed to show contrition had become his undoing. A confession that shattered everything and left everyone asking, was it faith or vanity that kept him standing? The sisters walked away together, arm in arm, leaving Kody alone with the silence his truth had created. Kody Brown destroyed in Courtroom Showdown, the letter that shattered everything. 4,000-word paragraph. In a stunning courtroom spectacle that unfolded like the final act of a long-simmering family tragedy, Kody Brown, the controversial patriarch of Sister Wives, was left emotionally wrecked and publicly humiliated in what insiders are now calling the showdown that ended the Brown family saga for good. The courtroom was thick with tension as Kody, once the self-assured and polygamist poster dad of TLC, walked into the hearing with Robin by his side, visibly rattled, his signature curls tucked beneath a worn-out cowboy hat that couldn't hide the panic in his eyes. What began as a legal dispute over land ownership and custody logistics quickly spiraled into a full-on exposé of years of manipulation, financial exploitation, emotional neglect, and broken trust. The moment that broke Kody and shocked everyone in attendance came when Christine's lawyer pulled out a sealed letter, handwritten, yellowing at the edges, and marked with a date that preceded the official breakdown of their marriage. The letter, written by one of Kody's own children during a time of deep emotional pain, was kept hidden by Robin and allegedly used as leverage in private family disputes. In court, however, Christine had decided the time had come to bring it into the light. As it was read aloud, line by devastating line, the courtroom fell silent. The child's words were raw, heartbreaking, and damning. "You told me family came first, but I watched you forget us. You never showed up. You made Mom cry behind closed doors, and I pretended I didn't hear. You gave Robin's kids everything. I thought maybe if I was more perfect, you'd look at me the same way. You didn't. You left us long before you left the house." The judge, visibly shaken, had to pause proceedings. Kody's face turned ashen, his hands trembling. The man who had built an empire on the premise of love, unity, and shared values suddenly looked small, cornered, and defeated. But the letter was only the beginning. Janelle, who had remained quiet for years, took the stand and shared a harrowing timeline of her financial situation, how she left the marriage with nothing but debt, how Kody moved money between accounts without her knowledge, and how Robin was granted access to assets that were supposed to be jointly held. The courtroom gasped when receipts were shown, luxury furniture purchases for Robin's house mere weeks after Janelle had pleaded with Kody to help pay for her utilities. Then Mary, who many believed would remain neutral, submitted a sworn statement detailing how Kody had emotionally frozen her out for years, leaving her in spiritual limbo while parading his affection for Robin on camera. Her words cut deep. "He stopped being my husband a long time ago. He made me feel invisible. I stayed because I believed in the family, but the family stopped believing in me." Kody tried to fight back, raising his voice, blaming editing, production pressures, and claiming misinterpretation, but the judge ordered him to sit down. Then came the bombshell. Robin herself was caught on a hot mic during a break in court, whispering to her lawyer that she didn't sign up to lose everything for Kody, triggering murmurs of betrayal even from Kody's remaining supporters. The courtroom showdown became a reckoning. Years of neglect, favoritism, weaponized affection, and broken spiritual covenants were laid bare. TLC cameras had shown the cracks, but in that courtroom, the dam burst. Kody's kingdom crumbled not because of the cameras, but because of the truth, handwritten by his own child, echoed by the wives he once swore eternal love to, and confirmed by financial records and testimony too solid to deny. When the judge ruled against him, denying his petition to maintain majority influence over family assets and citing in favor of independent division and individual autonomy, the gavel didn't just bring closure to a legal case. It brought down a legacy. Kody stood in silence, his eyes glassy, as Christine and Janelle hugged near the courtroom door. Mary wiped away tears, and Robin quietly walked away, refusing to meet his gaze. Outside, reporters asked Kody for comment, but all he could mutter was, "I thought I was doing the right thing." And maybe in his own mind he did. But in that courtroom, with the letter that shattered everything echoing in everyone's hearts, it was clear to the world that his version of right had come at a devastating cost, one he could no longer deflect, deny, or disguise. The era of Kody Brown, polygamist and patriarch, ended not with a farewell episode, but with a courtroom truth that stripped away the myth and left behind only pain, consequence, and a cautionary tale about what happens when love becomes a weapon and power blinds a man to the family he was supposed to cherish. As the courtroom slowly emptied, the emotional wreckage left in the wake of the showdown was impossible to ignore. Kody Brown, the man who once strutted in front of TLC cameras with a self-righteous belief in his divine leadership and paternal dominance, now sat slumped in a chair, abandoned, not only by the legal system, but by nearly every woman and child who had once formed the foundation of his family empire. Reporters swarmed the courthouse steps, but it wasn't Kody who gave the first statement. It was Janelle. She emerged with steel in her eyes and tears clinging to her lashes, holding nothing back as she addressed the crowd. "This isn't about winning. This is about being seen. We were gaslit, pushed aside, treated like burdens, and now the world knows the truth." Her voice cracked, but her hands were steady. What made the letter so earth-shattering wasn't just the painful revelation of Kody's emotional abandonment. It was who wrote it. One of his younger daughters, believed to be Savannah, who had long stayed out of the spotlight, rarely speaking on camera, always smiling behind the chaos. Her letter, now forever part of the court record, ignited a wave of reactions online, with fans expressing outrage and heartbreak in equal measure. Social media exploded with hashtags like #JusticeForTheWives, #KodyExposed, and #LetTheWomenHeal. And while Kody had spent years trying to manage public perception with talking head interviews and carefully curated reconciliations on screen, the courtroom allowed no edits, no soft lighting, no producer interference, just raw, unfiltered truth. Christine, standing tall beside David Woolley, gave a brief but powerful statement. "That letter reminded me of every night I stayed up with my girls crying. We were told to be grateful, to be quiet, to wait for his love to return. But we're not waiting anymore." Inside sources confirmed that during the courtroom lunch break, while cameras weren't allowed, Kody suffered a full emotional breakdown, sobbing uncontrollably in the hallway, banging his fist against the wall, screaming at Robin, "You said they'd never go this far. You said they'd never leave." Robin, clearly shaken, reportedly responded coldly, "They left because you gave them every reason to." For years, fans speculated whether Robin was the master manipulator or the final victim in Kody's unraveling descent into narcissism. But in that courtroom, it became clear Robin was no longer covering for him. Something had shifted. Some say she was embarrassed. Others believe she finally understood what the other wives had been screaming into the void for a decade. Whatever the truth, Robin left the courthouse alone, refusing to wait for Kody, who was last seen being escorted to his car by a court-appointed financial advisor, an embarrassing but necessary move considering what came next. The judge ordered a full forensic audit of Kody and Robin's joint accounts. The court had reason to believe that large sums of money, intended for the care and housing of his other children, had been redirected toward Robin's mansion, her online businesses, and emergency personal expenses that included a now infamous $14,000 necklace purchase listed under spiritual investment. That audit could expose years of alleged misappropriation. And if it does, Kody could not only lose custody of the remaining minor children, he could face civil lawsuits from his ex-wives and possibly even charges. In one of the most chilling moments of the day, Judge Martinez looked directly at Kody and said, "Mr. Brown, this isn't a religious matter. This is a matter of moral and financial responsibility. And you have failed spectacularly at both." The letter may have shattered the illusion, but what followed was a total collapse of Kody's credibility, influence, and financial future. TLC has since remained quiet, issuing a vague statement about evaluating the future of the Sister Wives series. Rumors are swirling that the network may shift focus to a new spin-off featuring Christine, Janelle, and Mary, three women who have finally found strength in freedom, not faith in a man who never lived up to his promises. Meanwhile, Kody remains holed up in his Flagstaff home, what used to be the family headquarters and now feels like a cold, echoing mansion filled with reminders of everything he lost. Neighbors report that he's barely seen outdoors and that Robin hasn't visited in days. Insiders claim Kody is considering leaving Flagstaff entirely, possibly moving to Utah or Nevada, away from the cameras, away from the judgment, but also away from the family he once claimed he'd die to protect. As the dust settles from the courtroom battle that made reality TV history, one truth rises above the chaos. The letter didn't just shatter Kody's defense, it shattered the myth he built, the story he sold to millions, and the grip he held over a family that simply wanted to be loved equally. And in doing so, it finally set them free.